would have invested in Bajaj stock in 2000, only 100 rupees,
Wow.
right? Currently, you would have.
Does it really happen? How does AI actually make up things? And
I didn't know that my grandfather had like a paper trail
Yeah.
of some of the stocks that he had noted when he bought like 20 years back. My current strategy is.
welcome to another episode of Cashvisory's podcast. I'm Arpita, the co-founder of Cashvisory, and we are on a mission to bring every young professional to their first investments. Super thrilled to introduce to you our very special guest today, Anuj Srivastava, who is the co-founder and CEO of OnFinance AI. From Bits Pilani to leading innovations that redefine financial services, Anuj's journey has been nothing short of inspiring. So get ready to deep dive into the world of fintech, explore the future through the lens of a true innovator. Anuj, it's fantastic to have you today.
Same here. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so you have studied in tech in Bits Pilani, and now you are doing a fintech startup. So let's understand how this whole journey started and tell us more about it.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, my journey of into finance was like basically before college. So my dad was like an avid trader. So I used to be with him, like sitting at terminals and at Angel Broking or Upstocks in Jhansi. That's my hometown.
The time when we didn't have apps to
Yeah,
do
exactly,
the trading.
exactly. So you have to call a broker or go to the terminal and then directly trade like that. So that was like the first entry point for me. And then when I went to college, my degree was actually chemical engineering.
Interesting.
But yeah, I worked hard for the first year, and then they have something bits a minor degree they offer in finance and economics. So basically, I took that, and then after that, I from the very first year started as a research consultant at a hedge fund based out of US. So that was an opportunity where a lot of Bitsians were actually applying for. So
Okay.
we just followed the lines there. So the journey has been really good for transitioning from, let's say, any sort of branch you have in bits to fintech or coding. But my specifically inclination was towards finance because I have been seen that. I mean, from like my 10th grade, my dad has been doing it. My grandfather used to do that. So I didn't know that my grandfather had like a paper trail of some of the stocks that he had noted when he bought like 20 years back when they were just listed. Like some of the stocks I remembered were Ashok Leyland, right?
Nice.
And Sessagoa. And I
Yeah.
think Sessagoa is currently not listed anymore.
So it's from those times. It's
Yeah.
like long history way back there.
Yeah.
So can I ask, like, so why, why engineering then? Like, why wasn't the
Yeah.
first choice finance? I'm just curious
Okay,
to know.
got it. So basically, Jhansi is a very small, you can say, city. I would say like a medium type of city in Jhansi. It was either engineering or medical for
yeah,
me.
we all know that. We all have that background.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
And then what was happening was my sister. So she was she went to Kota basically to study for medical.
Okay.
So it was either my father actually took me to a cafe after my 10th grade and he asked me, what do you want to do? Like, so I was like, okay, I also want to go to Kota.
Following the older sibling.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
also happens,
And then he
yeah.
was like, engineering or a doctor, right? So then I said, more inclination towards engineering. And like when I was first, thinking about all this, like which field to choose, I was actually very interested in automobile engineering. Yeah, yeah. But then after getting a chemical engineering, it was like,
Yeah, but then
yeah.
you did find your true passion.
Yeah, definitely.
Through minors, and then after
Yeah.
that, How was the transition from being an engineering graduate, although you did have that minor in
Yeah.
finance subjects, to getting into the first job as a finance professional, right?
definitely, yeah.
So did you find it like a huge jump to adjust to, or did it come naturally and you totally enjoyed like right from day one? How was that?
Yeah. So basically, there I would say my college really helped. So what happens was we have this system where after the fourth year you have PS2, basically practice station 2, a 6-month internship.
Okay.
Yeah. So there they call a lot of finance roles in a lot of investment banks, like banks like Credit Suisse, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. They all come and they ask for like some interns, right? Basically for this program. And there, if you have a minor in finance and economics, you have a preference. So
Right.
that was my first stepping stone, as in there was the first finance job that I got, and it was into Credit Suisse in risk management as an intern.
And I believe like our audience will also benefit from this experience of yours. If you really are passionate about something, you can find ways,
Yeah, yeah,
right, to go
correct.
towards that. So that's great. All right, then you had like a few corporate jobs from Barclays to HSBC, and then you went into startups. So
Yeah.
that's another shift there. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I was just going through and seeing how different roles fit in finance for me. And at the end of the day, after HSBC, working in HSBC for 6 to 8 months, I realized the tasks that I'm doing, those are interesting, but at the end of the day, it's like I'm working for a bank which is not even headquartered in India, right? So I was like, if I have that sort of knowledge, and if I could come up with an idea, right? Maybe I can like moonlight a little bit, right? And then start off with whatever I'm interested in, right? And again, here alumni network really helped. So I
Right.
actually got a mentor from Bits as well. So he was like a super senior who actually provided me, you can say, an opportunity to start this off after my corporate jobs. Yeah.
Right. So then you took the leap of faith.
Yeah,
There was
yeah.
a bit of overlap also,
Yes, yes,
moonlighting
there
as
was.
well.
So
Right.
like I didn't took any salary for 1.5 years. Yeah,
Absolutely. I think story of all the founders. We all know
exactly.
that. Okay. Okay. So with your current startup, On Finance AI, you are pioneering the use of generative AI in the financial sector. Would you like to explain to our audience, how this technology is transforming the financial services sector?
Yeah, definitely. So generative AI is nothing but basically using AI to generate any sort of you can say entity. It could be a text, it could be an image, it could be an audio, it could be a
Right.
file, right? So basically, what are some of the different use cases that we are solving at On Finance, and also basically people are solving in the finance industries? First is in terms of research, right?
Right.
So whenever you comes to finance, whenever you think of finance, it comes to your mind lot of numbers, right?
Right, of
So lot
course.
of analytics, lot
Yeah.
of research involved. So particularly what some of the different, you can say, domains that generative AI is being used at. First is in terms of research, particularly equity research, right? So basically, let's say if you want to do some research on a company, how are the financials of a company,
Right.
how the health of the company is, right? If you can basically, what are the different banks, what are the different brokerages saying about that company, if you can buy it, sell it, right? So that sort of research, basically automated that, or automating that using generative AI
Right.
co-pilots, right? Then there is credit note taking, right? So credit note taking is basically, let's say if a person comes to you, right? If he's asking for a loan, let's say of 1 CR from you, you have to evaluate the health, the portfolio health of that particular person, right? If his credit rating is good, what is his expenses on a daily basis, stuff like that, right?
Right.
So basically automating that for corporates and SMEs
Right.
within these banks for them. So this is basically in terms of credit analyst automating that sort of tasks,
Right.
right?
And these, so basically, it's the banks and the AMCs that will be using your product
Yeah, yeah,
for their internal teams
yes,
who will be able to use this technology and make the entire process of analysis, research much faster, much more efficient, I
correct.
believe, right?
Yeah, yeah,
All right. And you also mentioned, so it's Neo GPT
yeah,
is a trademark
yes,
for
yes.
your
RLLM.
startup, right?
Yeah,
And it's a vertical foundation LLM,
yeah, yeah,
large language model.
yeah,
So again, that's one thing that our audience would like to learn about today:
yeah.
generative AI versus LLM. What are these two terms that are keep seeing
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the domain, right? So yeah,
Definitely. So, basic LLM, it stands for a large language model,
yeah,
right? So LLM basically comes under the universe of generative AI only, right? So basically, what a large language model is, it's just basically a predictor of what's going to happen next. So let's
right,
say if you like write, give me a picture of a bird flying, right? Now the what the LLM is thinking of, what the large language model is thinking of, it's just taking those characters, and then it will generate a sequence of, you can say, tokens or characters in terms of that particular image, just predicting what would be the next word or the next character based on the training it has received.
right,
So basically it's you can say ki what sort of data it has been trained on, and what sort of thinking it has developed over time, right? It basically helps in automating or generating those type of tasks, right?
Right.
So that's why we have like vertical foundational models, we have horizontal LLMs. So horizontal LLMs are like ChatGPT,
Right.
Gemini, where you can basically generate anything. You can generate a poem to generating a file to generating an image, right?
Yeah.
Then there are vertical uh, LLMs, vertical large language models, which are basically you can say specific to, let's say specific to health, specific to
Right.
finance, right?
Correct. So for you, it will be finance, of
Yes,
course.
yes. So like new
So,
GPT is specific to finance,
and
like
these
that.
models are built on machine learning,
Yes,
right?
yes, machine learning
Certainly.
algorithms, right?
And
Particularly, it's a different architecture. So basically, a transformer based architecture. That's what it's based on.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the different applications or use cases? Firstly, is this vertical foundational LLM that you guys are building currently, aside from those that you have already mentioned in the financial services sector,
Yep, yep,
especially.
definitely. So some of the you can say very avid use cases you're seeing is portfolio management, right?
Right.
So portfolio management, be it let's say of ultra HNIs customers or be it of retail customers, right? So there are a lot of advisors or relationship managers in different banks
Right.
that have
Yeah.
let's say 10 to 12 clients mapped to them, right? They have to maintain the portfolio, they have to do the, you can say, portfolio rebalancing and all of that. So there, if basically you have the data of the client, right? Let's say the transactions data, holdings data, right? Or even the app activity data, or stuff like that. You can basically create an AI character of that particular retail customer, right?
Right.
And then you can talk to that AI character and basically you can understand what the portfolio persona of the is, right? How is the risk profile of the customer? What's the appetite? Right?
Right.
If it's a aggressive customer, an intraday customer, a conservative one, right? So all of that
So,
basically.
like it's on top of the user persona that teams usually build.
Yes.
Now you're adding more, so-called like
Personalization.
more personalization,
Yeah.
and you reduce the unpredictability of the actual client-facing
Exactly. Yeah.
experience that people get into.
Yes.
That's amazing. And since we're talking so much about artificial intelligence, actually, this is something I really wanted to know. Your passion for finance, completely understand the background, and why you chose engineering was also cleared right in the
Yeah.
beginning. But how come artificial intelligence? What drew you towards this and
Yeah.
utilizing AI into financial services?
Definitely. Basically, this is also linked to my last year of college,
Okay.
right? So basically, my full time was as a data scientist at a mobility startup. But then COVID hit, and I got an off campus placement at a healthcare company based out of US named Anthem.
Okay.
So I was a AI engineer there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
basically,
it just all fell into place.
yeah.
But I think you are one person who has really utilized his college life. So I think, and that has really defined what you're doing today and doing so well, right? Um, so how do you see, AI evolving the whole, financial services landscape today or in the coming future?
Yeah, definitely. I think there is adoption in the industry. Everyone is thinking of making their own proprietary LLMs, right? They want to adopt it in some sort of or the other way, right? Inside their workflows or let's say the customer level, right? But there are actually, in my experience, I've seen three things that basically is happening currently in of generative AI adoption, specifically in the financial services industry.
Right.
So first is basically concerns around data privacy
Yeah.
and data security. So because financial data is extremely sensitive in nature,
Yeah.
right? These banks and other financial institutions doesn't really get convinced easily to basically provide the data,
Yeah.
right? And even if so that's the reason they haven't been using OpenAI or some other similar sort of APIs because of their storing of the data in the US service,
Right.
right? So that was the first thing, and second thing is basically the accuracy and hallucination of these LLMs, right? So
I
we
was
have
going to
seen,
get into
yeah,
that.
yeah, we have seen these cases where Gemini, Google's LLM, was giving very racial answers,
Yeah.
right? There was this General Motors LLM who sold a car for $1 to a client, right?
And there
So
was also a ChatGPT case that gave Tesla's reports like
yeah,
completely imagined,
yes,
and the
yes,
numbers not were never there in any of
correct,
the past year reports, and
exactly.
it wrote an entire article without
Ha
any
ha. The
grammatical
lawyer. Ha
errors.
ha.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So these are the reasons, so that's why there are a lot of companies in the vertical space
Yeah.
for solving this, like this Harvey.ai, for who is doing good in legal LLMs, right?
Right.
So the third reason is basically the RBI and SEBI. They haven't said anything about using generative AI inside your corporation if you're
Right.
registered with them, or if you're a regulated one,
Hmm.
right? So also about the regulation of generative AI co-pilots, right,
Right.
within the corporation. So some of the banks are still, a little bit speculative when
Right.
it comes to
But that
this.
we foresee that, that's going to become part of a,
Yeah, yeah,
you
correct.
know, problem or solution.
Hmm,
Something
hmm,
has to
hmm.
happen in future, the way AI has, grown.
Yeah.
So since we are on the topic of AI and especially hallucinations, I think today everyone really loves talking to ChatGPT, right? And OpenAI has, even Gemini for that
Yeah.
matter. So people are writing emails, writing articles, their college assignments, school
Yeah.
assignments to that extent.
Yeah.
What will you say to, about people going and asking financial advice or making these queries?
Correct.
How reliable is it, and
Definitely.
especially given the hallucination cases? I think you are the expert here who can you can tell our audience more about it. Is it safe, or whether people should even do this and take it with a pinch of salt, or do not, just do not do
Yeah.
it at all?
Yeah.
And what is the best way for people to get this kind of financial advice, in your opinion?
Yeah, regarding that, what I think is ChatGPT, right? So when it actually came, around 1.5 year back, right, or more than that, it was pretty good, in terms of giving answers. So then it evolved, it became better. But what's happening is, after, so because it consumes feedback,
Yeah.
when you write an answer, ask a question, so it has been deteriorating in terms of the answer quality, nowadays, right? So when you go to GPT 3.5, which is Chat GPT, or Chat GPT 4, right? So Chat GPT 4 gives much better answers, right, on, let's say, specific topics related to healthcare or finance as well, right, than Chat GPT. So I would not recommend anyone to use Chat GPT, which is GPT 3.5, to basically ask any of their queries, right? But it is extremely good at doing research. So
Right,
let's say,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly my point. So I think people should definitely adopt artificial intelligence. It's
yeah.
becoming part of our life as much as smartphones had been, right?
Yeah.
But you have to really understand that, if, for example, if we are unwell, physically unwell, we will not get treatment from artificial intelligence. We'll still go to
Correct.
doctor,
Yeah,
right? So do all your research you want,
yeah,
but at the end of the day, you have to go to a regulated entity, a
definitely.
registered investment advisor or your
Exactly.
financial advisors for that. Otherwise, although as convenient as it looks, artificial intelligence, it does come with like a lot of risks
Exactly, exactly.
associated.
So that's what our values at on finance is as well, because we currently have in all our processes human augment layer. So yeah,
Absolutely, I think
so
that's
our
that's still
co-pilot, the
required.
human who regulates that, and then it goes
Yeah.
to the end user.
And do you foresee, like in your future, that going away, that human augmentation requirement?
Yeah. So I think in the next 2 to 4 years, maybe, right? I don't think any humans would be replaced by with what AI is currently at the level at,
Yeah.
right? But maybe, let's say, if OpenAI or Google is able to come up with AGI in the
Okay.
next 5 to 10 years, then maybe, because currently we are seeing there are a lot of AI agentic startups based out
Okay.
of US who have been doing really good work, in terms of the entire workflows, right? So there was this Devin, which was introduced, AI powered software engineer,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
by a company,
Devin.
right?
Yeah.
There's this AI powered employee by MII. So
Yeah.
their agentic workflows are currently doing good, right? But I think a person, we have heard this everywhere as well, that if a person knows about AI, right, has been using AI on a daily basis, it's hard to replace him or her. But if you're really just oblivion of what's happening, in the AI space, then
Yeah,
maybe,
then you
yeah,
may lag behind.
yeah, yeah,
And I would also like you to explain to the audience how this hallucination actually happens.
yeah.
Like, how does AI actually make up things? And I
Okay.
think this is something that people need to be aware of.
Correct.
That I am sure a lot of people don't even know this word hallucinations in the AI
Definitely,
context.
definitely. So what happens is, so if you see key different models, be it Llama by Meta, be it Google models, be it OpenAI, ChatGPT, right? So they have these tokens or parameters defined, right, on basis of what data sets they have been trained on, right?
Yeah.
So how hallucination basically occurs it. So let's say when the LLM or ChatGPT answers to you, right, it answers as in based on the feedback loop it has. So it's called RLHF, reinforcement learning human feedback loop, where what happens is it's try to maximize its price, so it try to give you an answer for everything, right? So
Right.
what happens is, let's say if you have like 10 PDFs you have trained it on, right? Now you want it, now you ask something which is not in those 10 PDFs, like, right? But it will make up something, and it will basically give you the answer if there are not proper guardrails behind it,
Right.
right? So you have to put proper guardrails behind it. But let's say if you just ask it, it will make up an answer, because it basically tries to, technically speaking, maximize his reward for each answer. So it's right. So basically that's why
Right.
it's, at the end of the day, it's not a human, it's a next word predictor. It's just predicting what should come after the, what should come after right, like
Right.
that.
Right.
So
That's interesting. I
yeah.
think it kind of reminds me of the times when we look at a question paper and we don't know the answer, but we have a lot of time left.
Yeah.
Just make up things
Correct,
because
correct.
we have to just utilize that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So you have already covered, what are the different risks that AI actually has. I think now it's more about like the solutions that are. So I think with every problem that comes, there's always a solution, and there's like an industry that forms around that. So how many of these problems are being tackled by the current solutions today, like in terms of, because now we have, like for example, your startup is being utilized by financial services, AMCs, banks.
Yeah.
So what are the guardrails that you have to make sure, besides the human augmentation, or what is in the roadmap there?
Yeah, definitely. So we see basically the financial services industry, right? There are some people who are trying to build foundational LLMs here. But just to give you an example of a Bloomberg GPT,
Okay.
right? So what happened there was a Bloomberg GPT paper came out around 1 year back, and they said, like OpenAI built ChatGPT for horizontal, we are building a Bloomberg GPT from scratch, right? For financial services, right? So there are basically three methods to, you can say, train a LLM, right? First is pre-training, basically that is giving the raw data
Okay.
and training it from scratch. Then there is fine tuning, where basically you can just give some sample sets of really concentrated domain data and train it on that specific domain. And then there is partial fine tuning and some other aspects, right? So what they actually did was, Bloomberg GPT, they shifted from pre-training to fine tuning now, right?
Right.
Basically, yeah. Now they are just using some other horizontal LLMs available, and they are just using financial data to fine tune them, right? So basically, what's happening in this industry? There, one of the major use cases is they have deployed Bloomberg GPT inside the Bloomberg terminal. So the Bloomberg terminal was just like a data extraction layer, right? And if you see, its UX was also very, very bad if you used it, right? So now people have been using Bloomberg GPT a lot, right?
Right.
And some of the other companies have been doing really good work in, let's say, fraud detection.
Fraud detection
Yeah.
is another
So
thing.
that's a very niche industry where generative AI applications are coming, right? Then there, as I said, credit underwriting, right? Portfolio management.
Right.
Then there is risk management, right?
Yeah.
In risk management, basically doing models and everything.
Yeah.
Then also a quant research.
Quant research.
Yes, where
Another thing.
basically you can just say, ki, build a technical strategy for me, taking 20 days rolling period or something like that.
Right.
Build a equity by debt fundamental strategy for me for this Nifty 50 stocks universe, right?
Right.
So in natural language, it builds this uh, the entire quant strategy for you, which you can deploy basically.
Right. And these are still being used by professionals, meaning finance professionals. You foresee in your near future retail investors could use products like that directly
Yeah.
for their own financial decision making or their own investments.
Yeah, definitely. I see that. But currently, the level of AI, like the current level of AI, we think the guard railings should be really, really strong and powerful,
Right.
right, for a retail user to directly consume it. Because we think for a user, right, if the AI or LLM doesn't know the answer to what the user is actually asking, it should say, ki, I'm sorry, this is out of scope or
Yeah.
something like that, right? It
But
should not hallucinate and
hallucinate
yeah,
and
misguide the user,
misguide.
right?
So
We think in the next couple of years, right, there would be a good adoption of generative AI for these retail investors.
retail
Yep,
investors.
yep,
So, for your own personal finance, and we'll get into that.
yeah.
If there's one pain point that you want artificial intelligence to solve, what would it be?
Yeah, so one major pain point I would say is the data sets,
Okay.
basically the data pre-processing, right? So I think like it's like 60-70% of your entire accuracy of the model, or of entire product depends on how you are pre-processing your data, how you are gathering that data, how you are consolidating those data sets, right?
And
So
so, I mean, of course, there are a lot of algorithms and platforms that are already built,
yeah.
to do all of this processing. So, what else do you think AI can add on to that?
Yep, definitely. So what we can think is, so LLMs, specifically generative AI. So it's actually better at inferring unstructured data, right?
Unstructured
So
data.
unstructured data is just messy data. Let's say
Right.
messy data sets of Excels, messy PDFs, right? All of that, any XML files, YAML files, or all of that. So that unstructured data, it's able to read it very you can say better. It's able to read it better than structured data even, right? So that's where we think, so what the majority of hedge funds, or let's say these mutual funds or different funds are doing currently inside their organization, is that they are using generative AI to create like a enterprise search of their entire company documents, right? In
Right.
their entire compliance documents, like make their entire company GPT, something like that,
Yeah.
right? So basically, taking all that data, structuring it, and using natural language to extract.
So yeah, back to your personal finance. You
Yeah.
had exposure to trading very early on in life, thanks to your family, and then you also developed a natural inclination towards it. So when did you first start when did you venture into investing by yourself?
Okay, so basically, I was with my dad for the last 3-4 years. Basically, after 8th, 9th class, I used to be very involved into trading.
Yeah.
At 9:30 the morning bell,
So
and
you
then
got up at 9:30 to trade, not to study. We all got up to study. Okay.
so it was like, yes, on particularly when I was off, when we have school holidays, I
Right.
was
Yeah.
like with dad only. So basically, there I used to learn with my dad how to do these. How he actually trade, but I didn't know what's actually happening and all of
Yeah.
that behind the scenes. But my first year of college, I made my account on Zerodha, right, kite, and then I think I started trading, and I've just put in the money in the stocks which my dad was trading, right, in the
Okay.
first semester itself.
Right.
So I would say in the first college year, that was my first trade. And then after that, I started, learning more about the stock market, joined the Wall Street Club of my college, and then, I took some classes on basic fundamental analysis, technical
Technical
analysis
analysis.
of the
Right.
companies and all of that. Yeah.
And like for you to start off, like how much time of educating yourself, how much time did you have to devote to that to actually take on the entire investing from your dad to
Yeah,
to do
correct.
it by yourself?
Yep, yep, definitely. So it was, I would say, I was actually interested in that as well, right? So after being with him for 1-2 years, right, when he was trading, I was like, this is actually interesting. From the third year, my 11th grade, I was like, this I can also maybe see in the future,
Yeah.
right? Because it was like numbers, and he was just putting money and getting good returns,
Right.
sometimes bad as well. So basically, what I particularly feel was it was a very smooth transition, right? I already knew when I was in my first year which brokerage should I select, right? Which stocks should I actually see? What is the difference between small cap, large cap, mid cap stocks, and all of that, right? But my major learning curve was actually learning how to trade options and futures.
FNOs.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that actually took me 2 to 2.5 years.
2.5
Yeah,
years, right?
after my third year, I started
So,
doing that.
just for the sake of the audience,
Yeah.
let us tell them that futures and options are a much more complex product
Yes, yes, of
compared to
course.
stock trading, and not for the beginners for sure.
Definitely.
If you see, like, it definitely takes few months to
Yep,
years
yep,
to really ace it,
yep.
and it's highly risky as well.
Definitely.
But you did catch on to it and then
Yeah, yeah.
continued.
Initially, after losing 80,000 on the first trade,
It
then I
doesn't.
took a break of 1 year, studied again, and then I was like, never take a hunch on trading FNOs. Maybe you could take on stock
On
after
the
doing
stock,
some research
and even, yeah,
on
even
long-term
then,
stocks,
long
maybe.
term stocks
Yeah.
maybe, but even then a lot of analysis goes into it. So
Yep.
for someone who doesn't have the background or the,
Hmm.
I would say, kind of advantage that you
Hmm.
had with your dad teaching you from early on, would you recommend them to start with stock investing or other financial products that are more suitable for a beginner?
Yeah, so I would say in terms of investing, if you're like a pure beginner, right, you could maybe start with, let's say, mutual funds or ETFs,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So they're a very good way of diversifying your risk, giving you good returns as well. Like they're basically safe instruments, safer than a large cap, mid cap, or small cap stocks.
Stocks.
But definitely, I think in terms of starting off, mutual funds, then ETFs, or even I would say commodity like gold. Right,
Right.
you can. So
Right.
these three other asset classes, I think, which you can actually start off with, because it's easy to you can say, basically not to study them, but actually see how
Right.
they have been performing in the past,
Yeah,
right?
I think it's definitely, has a trend line, and especially, those balanced funds,
Yep.
not a highly adventurous, aggressive fund. They will definitely have some sort of a trend line or an indication that this is how the portfolio performs versus an individual stock
Yeah, yeah,
of a company that has so many different factors, some
definitely.
of which you can still analyze, some of which is completely up to how the market performs in future, right?
Yep, yep.
So I think, yeah, we also always encourage people to get into mutual funds and ETFs as a beginner. Another important fact is that you can get started with a really small amount. So the
Correct.
best way, I think, even you would have figured out that until you really invested the money, you probably did not have that much interest to put
Yeah,
aside time and learn about it.
correct,
So the
correct.
best way to actually learn is also to dip your toes a little bit. So then you start watching, like, even if you put 50 rupees in
Yeah,
an SIP, then you start watching what's happening with that 50 rupees.
exactly.
But just learning or reading up, a passive learning is not something that will go a long way. I mean,
Yeah.
after a while you might just lose interest, right? So yeah, I think ETFs and mutual funds. Another point you mentioned about gold, I think gold is great for hedging, but people can also combine that with gold, like gold ETFs,
Yeah.
and then just have, instead of that physical asset, which I think nowadays with our generation, it's very hard to keep physical assets given how mobile we are, how
Exactly,
much we move
exactly.
around,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Like yesterday was Akshaya Tritiya, right?
yeah.
So yesterday we saw like a record of people ordering gold from Zepto,
From
Blinkit. Right.
Wait, this is the first time
So
I'm hearing that you can order gold from Zepto.
yeah,
Does it really happen? You can order gold from
yes, yes,
Zepto.
yes, you can.
That's amazing, man. Okay. So yeah, so more about your personal portfolio. So how did it evolve? Like you started with stocks and you went into FNO.
Yeah.
First you made the loss, then you learned from your mistakes, and
Yes.
then
Yes.
continued with that, and then any other things, assets you added.
Correct. So basically, I always had mutual funds, right, that I have
Okay.
invested in. Most of them are tax savers, mutual funds, right?
ELSS, right?
And then I have some of the major ETFs as well that I have invested in,
Right.
right? So I have those, and like for stocks, I particularly trade in large cap or mid cap.
Large cap and mid
Yeah,
cap.
yeah. And it's mostly like long term, as respect to
Okay.
like monthly or weekly.
Right.
So that is there, and other than that, I have like some of the cash invested in gold as well,
Gold as well.
right? Because as you said,
So can I
like
say you're
digital
not so much of a
commodity.
trader, more of an investor? Like you don't do day trading or position
Yes, yes,
trading
yes,
or swing
correct.
trading.
Yes. So during
Right.
my college, I used to be an intraday trader.
Intraday trader.
Yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
basically, I dabbled into a lot of instruments there. So crypto was also one of the
Crypto was.
instruments.
Yeah, what's your opinion on crypto then, since you've
Okay.
already dabbled into
Yeah,
it.
definitely. So I think like crypto is definitely here to stay, right? So also have like a huge chunk of my portfolio in crypto as well, specifically in coins like Bitcoin, right, Ripple, Ethereum. So specifically, I think in crypto, the tokens or coins which have a lot of fundamental value, right, which have a particular use case, so they are like extremely valuable to have as of now, right? So I think let's say in the next 5 to 6 years, so Bitcoin will be a very scarce commodity,
Right.
even you can say more valuable than gold as of now.
So, can you really define the value though? Because it kind of depends
Yeah,
on like how scarce or how,
yeah,
and even the use cases have not really been, applied
yeah.
yet. So, I mean, how much of like, considering that you have dabbled into a lot of risky assets, where will you place crypto in terms of risks?
Okay, risky. Okay, so I would obviously place cryptocurrencies at the bottom of that
Yeah.
deck, right? The
Yeah.
most
The riskiest one in a
riskiest
way.
assets.
Yeah.
It's obviously not for the faint-hearted. You have to do a
Exactly.
lot of research. You have to be okay with losing like 80%, 90% of
Right.
portfolio
Yeah.
in 1 week,
Yeah.
right?
So, in fact, like I think if you have not started investing, if you have not built a portfolio,
Yep.
I don't think crypto is for you.
Yep.
If you've
Definitely.
already built a portfolio for yourself through mutual funds, you have stocks, you have other assets, goals, and
Yes.
whatnot,
Yes.
and then you just want to figure, like, find out what this new asset class is, what crypto is, and then you put aside a certain amount of money, which again you are open to losing,
Yeah. Exactly.
then that's something you can explore. But
Yeah.
for beginners, definitely not the case, right? When
Definitely.
did you get started into crypto? Was it like after all this
Yeah, so during my second year,
second
and
year
I started. So I just started learning more about it, and
learning
then
about
third year I started investing in it because like crypto was going up like crazy. It
FOMO?
went from yeah, FOMO 10,000
I
to
think
70,000,
FOMO has
and
taken
so
down
on.
more
Yeah,
people than anything else,
exactly.
right? So, what advice would you give? One advice, if you had to give youngsters to get started with their investment journey?
Got it. So basically, I would say कि first of all, like without any research, right, you can start to dabble with mutual funds or ETFs, right,
Okay,
to be or even let's say some small cases, right,
right.
right.
Um,
Basically,
Basket of stocks.
baskets of so basically just a little bit riskier than ETFs, but so I would say कि you can start with putting in your like let's say 5,000, 10,000 into these two, right,
Yeah,
and then maybe study ki how which mutual fund or ETF in those of the portfolio of yours is performing well, right, and after that you can basically see ki what are the underlying stocks of that mutual fund which is performing well,
yeah,
right, and then you can basically go on to investing in them, right.
yeah.
So I usually have a very simple you can say strategy when it comes to investing in any of the instruments in the stock market other than FNO, right.
Yes.
Yes, so basically like it's just like my current strategy is like I just saw how Nifty is performing for the last 6 years, sorry, 6 months, right, and I just looked at the top 100 stocks in terms of market cap and which are outperforming Nifty index,
Okay.
right, and I just put in some cash accordingly how much are outperformed in that ratio into these stocks,
Into those
right,
stocks.
and it has been like going well for the past 3 to 4 years.
Right.
So it's just a very simple strategy. You can pick it, right. You don't have to see what are the different strategies I have to look in
Right.
before
I
doing.
think your strategy also has to be very personal,
Yeah,
which suits you, like your risk
definitely.
appetite and the time horizon you're looking at in terms of withdrawing the money.
Done.
So, for example, for me, I would look at not just the last 6 months of performance, but also last 3 years, 5 years of everything
Correct.
since inception as well.
Yes.
I would look at if I'm looking at funds, I'm looking at the overall fund size as well. I try not to go for very small size funds. Because they're just have much more exposure. So
Definitely.
I think personal finance is truly personal,
Definitely.
and
So it's like if let's say you want to go to a vacation in the next 6 to 8 months,
exactly.
right? Then you have to get money in, in the next 6 to 8 months. Then
Yeah.
your strategy would be a
Completely
riskier,
different.
right?
Yeah.
You would more be interested into dabbling into let's say small cap for that,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And so, like, you started in the first year of college. What would you suggest youngsters today who are really waiting and currently they are in that YOLO mind frame, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you earn money and spend money and live for
Yeah,
today, and they're like, okay, someday we will think about future, someday we'll
definitely.
start investing. When is the right time to even get started, according to you?
Got it. So that's a very good question as well, and I have been also asking this to a lot of my series. So basically, I was very you can say ignorant of my personal wealth and personal finance. I was like, let's just keep on accumulating money, right? Don't need to invest anywhere. Maybe keep it in an FD or something, right?
Yeah.
Because I have to put in my time if I
Yeah.
want to invest it somewhere. But investing is very very important, right? Because it's not about just seeing it for, let's say, 1 year, 2 year, or even 5 years, right? It's about seeing how much it can compound for you, right?
Exactly.
In terms of the returns for, let's say, 10 years or 20 years, right?
What the real potential of that money is
Yes,
from
exactly.
today.
So let's say if just to give you an example, if, let's say, if you would have invested in Bajaj stock in 2000, only 100 rupees,
Wow.
right? Currently you would have 7 crore, right? So it's all about like
In 24,
compounding. Yeah,
and it took
exactly.
24 years, so
Yes,
there
yes.
is a lot of patience involved.
Definitely,
You
definitely.
like, even I think a lot of people also, when they think of stock market,
Mm-hmm.
they think of it like as quick money, like they really want to get into the market when the stock is going to jump tomorrow, which is very hard to do, and that's not possible
That's
at
true.
all.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
even if you're looking at stock market, it's a long term game, and you have to have a lot of patience, and you have to build wealth. So the best time, I always say that the best time to start, I think it was said by somebody famous, I'm just going to steal that quote. The best time to start was 20 years ago. Okay, the actual quote is, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today, or now. So
Okay.
same thing goes for investing. The best time was 20 years ago, but the next best time is today, right?
Today. Correct.
So okay, any book that you would recommend to youngsters for finance and for artificial intelligence?
Yeah. So I have read a lot of finance related books more
Okay,
than, let's say, AI related
then
books. Yeah.
yeah,
So I would say there's this Intelligent Investor, right?
absolutely, everyone loves
Yeah,
that.
yeah, definitely. And then there is One of Wall Street by Peter Lynch,
Okay.
right? So these two are the my, you can say, go-to books. They still are when it comes to, let's say, looking over financial concepts, right? How to look at a particular company, right? So it's very very descriptive. So I think that could be a starting point, right? But in terms of how I started in college, so it was through the varsity modules.
Modules.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
then there is,
nowadays online you have all these
yes,
educational.
Investopedia we have.
Investopedia
Yeah.
is, and I think a lot of people are also looking at the structured course, right? So Investopedia is a plethora of information. You don't know
Yes.
where to start.
Correct.
So I
Correct.
think books in that case, or even like, a platform like Varsity really helps that
Yep.
way, that
Yep.
to give
Definitely.
a structured way to learning.
Right.
So if you were not in finance and artificial intelligence, what is the alternative career that you would have had?
Okay. So I was always into singing, right?
Oh,
Yes.
okay,
Yes. So I've been it's like 15 years I've been playing guitar, and 10
amazing.
years I've been singing. So that was my next passion. But after second year of college, I realized it's a very far fetched. There's a lot of competition
And
everywhere.
you got into entrepreneurship. You kind of
Yeah.
found that in some way easier.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I mean, I would say this was a very, so I was a very I'm a very, you can say, risk. I'm very afraid of taking any risk, to be honest, right? So this entrepreneurship was particularly just like a you can say like a hunch, right? Or even like you can say free. I was like freestyling it, right? I was
Okay.
like, yeah, I can't. Uh, Take off my salary, right? I have to work at a company
Yeah.
and have that stable income in
Right.
place as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I would not have been an engineer, I would
But
be a
okay, be a singer.
musician.
But I totally don't believe when you say that you are afraid of risk, because you have dabbled into FNOs and crypto, and you're an entrepreneur. But fine,
Yeah.
if you, I mean, of course, there is different levels of being risk averse, and it's also that, sometimes people, when they take a lot of risks with their finance, they don't like to take a lot of risks in their career. Or if
Yeah.
you are venturing into entrepreneurship, then you become suddenly very risk averse in your investments. So that also happens, just to make sure that
Like the
you have,
mindset. Yeah.
yeah, like, just balance it out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so as we wrap up, what are the future developments of on finance AI that we should be looking forward to?
Yeah, definitely. So in the next quarter or so, we are planning to bring out our two AI powered analysts. So one would be our AI powered equity research analyst, basically be the entire work of, let's say, what an equity research analyst is currently doing at a wealth management company or a bank. And second is our AI powered credit analyst, which would basically do the entire credit underwritings of a particular corporate or a SME, right,
Right.
with a single button or of a workflow.
Yeah.
So these are the two, you can say, major AI powered analysts or co-pilot that we are planning to launch in the next quarter or so.
Interesting. Any piece of advice for young entrepreneurs, rather like, entrepreneurs venturing into the fintech space?
Yep. So I would say, if you are going into the fintech space, right, you need to have some sort of experience, right? Maybe do an internship at a hedge fund or a bank, right? Do a full time job at
Yeah.
a wealth management company or something like that. So after you know like intrinsics of the company, so couple of years is enough to basically understand how it works at a particular bank or in finance. After
Right.
that, maybe if you have any sort of idea, you can combine that with AI.
Absolutely. Artificial intelligence is always there to be your
Yes.
buddy.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. So now we are coming to the last segment, which is the rapid fire. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a few questions and you have to be like really quick about the answers.
Okay.
So get set, go.
Yeah.
Okay. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Books or podcasts?
Podcast.
iOS or Android?
iOS.
One word to describe your first job.
Boring.
One gadget you can't live without.
Mobile. Yeah.
Buying versus renting.
Renting.
Okay. If you could start a new trend, what would it be?
Regulation of AI.
Regulation of AI.
Yeah.
I think that's a very noble trend that you would like to start. More of like a revolution you need to
Yeah,
bring.
yeah, definitely.
Virtual reality or augmented reality?
Virtual reality.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
That was just my personal one. It was not in the list.
Okay.
Thank you, Anuj, for being here today. Thanks to our audience for listening in. And stay tuned. Keep coming back. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share it if you found it useful and you think that there's someone out there who'd find it helpful as well. See you again.